Good afternoon, everyone. This is Brian L.E. I am the Parts and Accessories Specialist here in the Northeast region. Thank you, everybody, for joining this afternoon. With me and backing me up today is Victor Martinez, our after-sales marketing specialist. He'll stick around for the Q&A at the end. Wanted to get in some inventory management. But talking about some of the inventory management in the traditional sense, but also really what it means for your business in general and how it really impacts sales and customer satisfaction as well. Give you some best practices there in the end. I expect to run maybe about 20 minutes with the presentation, and then we will follow up with some Q&A at the end. Please do, again, the mics are muted. That's how we run our calls here in the Northeast, so just make sure everything goes nice and smoothly. Again, thank you all for joining. We do encourage comments and questions, so please go ahead and ask your questions there, and we will definitely stay on at the end and answer everyone's questions. And I'll just go ahead and get started here. So when we talk about inventory management, we often talk about aged inventory or obsolescence, and the longer a part sits in inventory, the less likely it will sell, right? And that's why we do worry about it. On the sales side of the business, we tend to be a little bit more sensitive to things sitting for too long. We wouldn't let a used car sit on our inventory, sit on our lots for more than 90 days because we'd be concerned about holding costs, depreciation. Furthermore, it's taking up physical space, and it's tying up the dealer cash when you could be turning those funds, using that physical space to retail something and turn a profit and do it quickly, and then moving on to the next vehicle. Well, and we put measures in place to make sure that we're getting rid of aged vehicles on our lot, because the likelihood that a car is going to sell as time goes on goes down. And that's especially true for aged inventory in the parts department. So these are some NADA stats here. The longer part sits in inventory, the less likely it's going to sell. And we often refer to parts aged 12 or more months as being risk for obsolescence. But even a 9-month-old part only has a 15% chance that it will ever sell. So the longer you have it, the more likely it becomes truly obsolete. And then you will either have to take a loss on the item or have to scrap it or find some other way to get rid of it. There are, most of us here on this call, most of us are parts managers on this call, and we're aware of the dangers of aged inventory and parts turning into obsolescence. But I wanted to discuss also a little more on the how parts inventory affects sales, directly affects sales, customer satisfaction, and dealer profitability on a whole. Now, when you have the right parts in stock, it allows all of parts and service to focus on the things that matter and focus on the things that are driving revenue and customer satisfaction, right? The techs are producing hours, parts is selling parts, service consultants are making customers happy, right? However, when we don't have the right parts in stock, things begin to break down, and it can have a ripple effect across the departments. Techs are spending more time pulling cars in and out of their bays because they don't have parts available. Their productivity, their proficiency is going downward. Not having the right part in stock just puts the sale at risk, period. A customer is more likely to say yes to a sale when they can get their car back the same day or maybe the next day. And then when you can't get it done, it's disappointing. It drives customer satisfaction down. It can drive your surveys, your scores, your Google 5-star, all that gets driven downward. And that could affect not only retention, but that could affect the likelihood that other customers who see those reviews, if they're going to come in and get their vehicle serviced with you. And then, of course, parts and service has to spend more time now managing these special orders, calling these customers back, getting them back in. They're focusing on the busy work, quite frankly, and not on sales and customer satisfaction. Um, Having the right inventory, it really affects so many different parts of parts and service. It affects your labor sales, the customer experience and retention, as I mentioned. And the parts manager really has to consider themselves sort of an investment manager. You think of if you were to go and invest your money into a fund, that person has a fiduciary responsibility. They really they owe the customer that responsibility. And you, as a parts manager, what you're doing is you're really managing the customer's cash, and you're investing that in a way that is going to affect the rest of the business either positively or negatively. So increasing the off-the-shelf fill rate, that is really key. That helps drive the profitability. And again, it's an upward spiral, as you can see. Having the right parts at the right time increases customer satisfaction, profit, and then your increased purchases helps you to increase your parts purchase performance, your bonus achievement, your buyback accrual goes up. And one thing missing from here as well is, everyone in the dealership, I think, is just a little bit happier when things are flowing well, when you're selling more, when perhaps their pay is effective positively, technicians are producing hours. It is definitely an upward spiral. And, if the opposite of this, if you could just imagine, reverse the flow for a moment. If you weren't managing your inventory right, what would happen to all of these things, right? One of the fundamentals of parts management is managing the life cycle. And the life cycle essentially asks, when should we bring an item in? What's the right number to bring in once we do decide to bring it in? And then when is it time to get rid of it? And it's really demand tracking, right? When do you need it? How much of it? And when do you need to get rid of it? There are a number of different metrics and measures within the DMS for measuring and controlling inventory. I wish I had the time to go through it here. Me, as the parts specialist for the Northeast region, I would spend hours inside of a dealership going through all of this with you. And quite frankly, I could probably spend days. There is so much to measure and to control. Your DMS provider has a lot of resources that I would ask you to rely on. If you have any questions on what some of these deeper numbers mean, I'll be happy to work with you and with your FOM on that as well. But we're not going to go too much into the nuts and bolts of inventory management. I wanted to keep it more focused on some key concepts. So one of the key concepts of inventory management is inventory breadth and depth, right? And if you can keep those two things balanced, it affects another key term for inventory management, and that's fill rate, or more specifically, off-the-shelf fill rate. So this is a way, if you can balance this out, you can actually increase your fill rate without increasing your overall investment. A lot of times when we talk about whether it's our bonus program or SSA, the suggested stocking assortment, or even auto part, quite frankly, a lot of times I think it's thought of that we're asking dealerships to stock more part dollars. And really what it's more about is stocking part numbers. And if you can imagine, if you look at these two bars, if you were to manage your depth or even, let's say, reduce your day's supply of each item, you could turn that sideways in a sense and turn those into additional part numbers that you stock. And by doing that, of course, you increase your off-the-shelf fill rate, increases the likelihood of completing vehicles in the same day. Technicians are more productive. You're decreasing your need for emergency purchases. That could help your buyback accrual, help you manage your inventory. And again, this can be achieved if you do this right and you set your day's supply to a level that that makes sense to you. You can increase your fill rate without increasing your parts inventory dollars. So next, I'm going to get into some of the specific numbers. You all received an email from me yesterday morning that had not only the invitation to this webinar, but it had your dealer's specific inventory numbers. And I have to give a big shout out here to Carly Stinson, who works on our team, and she was able to get that out to you all, 201 dealers in the Northeast region. You all received your own information. This is a sample dealer here that we're going to look at for just a moment. And I'd invite you to open up that email and have it alongside of you so you can look at some of the metrics with me together as we go through it. Just going from the top, and this is broken up a little bit here from an email, just so it's a little bit easier to see on the screen. I'll use my little pointer here so that you can see what I'm talking about. So just moving from the top to the bottom there. The very first number is, or I should say metric, is auto part enrollment status. Why is that important? Well, most of our dealers, I mean, about 96, 97% of our dealers are enrolled, but it is we were just talking about the importance of fill rate, and that is what the auto parts system, the auto replenishment system, is designed to do. It is to keep parts that you sell on a day-to-day basis in your inventory without risk of stock out. And the next number below is your SSA, or your parts breadth. And both of these items do relate to the PPB, or the parts performance bonus. 80% is the target for parts breadth. We give you, a list every quarter of suggested items to stock, and that is that number reflected there. Next, in the summary section, these are inventory. Many of these inventory metrics you can pull by pulling a management report out of your DMS. And just a little note about this, I mean, you'll see a little bit of a disclaimer in the email that we send you, and I just wanted to talk to you a moment about how these numbers are pulled and how they're put together. A lot of these numbers do come out of your DMS, do come directly out of your DMS. Some of these other numbers that we have here that we sent to you in the email, they are put together using our invoicing. So we invoice you, and we also credit you when the buybacks or the returns happen. So some of those numbers are estimated, and we put this together as a report card, if you will, in order to facilitate a discussion. Are these numbers going to be 100% accurate as far as what your DMS were to report if we were to pull any of these specifics, whether it be the aged inventory, inventory turnover? No, maybe not 100%. I am confident, though, that it is pretty dead on. And so if you have any questions about the numbers that you have in front of you, if you think they're a little bit off and you want to discuss it further, I invite you to contact me, send me a note, give me a call so we can go through it together. Okay, so current inventory value and a day supply standpoint. Not that long ago, we used to consider 90 days a benchmark for inventory, for parts inventory. I mean, maybe that's much longer than I'm imagining now. I've been around for a while. So I'm thinking that's when we had monthly stock orders and not stock orders that happen every 2 days. Right now, we're looking at about 30 to 45 days as a day supply target here. And this particular sample store, we're calculating them to have a 57-day supply. So a little bit over the 45 benchmark. Just a little bit of a note on that. You have to go what works for your store and what's comfortable. A smaller store may actually be more comfortable with a slightly larger day's supply. You don't want to risk stock out, of course, so it has to work, and giving you a range, a benchmark is just all we're trying to show you here. So if we wanted to do a 45-day supply, how do we calculate the day supply? Well, we're looking at what you're selling, all right? And based on what you're selling over the last 12 months, a 45-day supply is being calculated there as $323,000. And based on that, compared to your 403,000 inventory, you're over that number by 79,000. So if your target was a 45-day supply, in this regard, you're 20% over, or you have 20% excess stock if you were measuring it that way. Now, from an aged inventory perspective, 12 plus is normally what we talk about, and others in the industry will argue that at 9 months you need to be concerned. I certainly think you need to be concerned when your inventory hits 9, and on your report card that was sent to you, you do have it broken out inventory by movement if you wanted more detail. But in this case, this dealership, $73,000 of the inventory is age 12 plus. That amounts to 18%. New parts, no sale. This is maybe not a term that is that familiar, but if you consider what is a new part without a sale, I would have to imagine that that couldn't be anything other than an unsold special order. And in this regard, this dealer has $27,000 worth, or about 7% of the overall investment is a special ordered part. Now, does that mean there's a problem? Maybe, maybe not. If this is a busy shop, maybe having 7%. If it's a lot of big jobs, maybe that's not anything really to worry about. It can point, and there are many times I see the opposite. I'll see a dealer, an inventory that's managed really well, will have 5% or less on the age 12 plus, but then I would see a new parts, no sales that are out of control. And you may be seeing that on your report where this number is actually higher than the age 12, in which case the parts manager may be doing a really good job of managing the inventory, but special orders may be starting to get out of control. And I look at that as a sort of a phantom aged inventory issue, because the way the DMS counts aged inventory is different. But again, it's what does it add up to? Well, that's what this yellow line is. No matter how you slice it, these are parts that are not doing anything for you. Remember the image of those old cars sitting on a lot, right? It really doesn't matter how you slice or dice, or even the reason behind these numbers. This is $100,000 or 25% that's idle. It's just sitting there doing nothing for the dealership. So that number being more than 10% of the overall inventory value, I would be concerned, and I'd be looking into some processes, some ways of getting rid of aged inventory, and ways of buttoning up the special order process, perhaps. Another measure of the inventory here is looking at an SSA on hand value. On hand value, we'd like to see this about half of your inventory being what is on what we call your fast mover list, your SSA list. And in this case, that number is pretty low here. And that could also indicate possibly, high SORs here as well. Inventory turn is good here, between 6 and 8 per year. This, if you look towards the bottom of your report, you'll see that the calculation there for turn is there on the bottom, the way it's put together, and that's basically your average inventory value divided by the 12 months cost of sale, and that's how you get your turn and your days supply calculation. The very last metric here is a 24-month buyback utilization. This is something that's calculated on our end. It's not something you really would be able to confirm in your DMS. If you looked at the buyback screen in Parts on Command, you may be able to calculate something similar. But what this is looking at, and actually I'll just go in on the next screen, it'll give you maybe just a little bit more detail here. I'm sorry, that's actually not the right one there. I apologize. So we'll leave it here for a moment. So the buyback utilization here, the 84.8%, that's on the summary. That's the 24-month here on the bottom of the screen. And it's basically what it's looking at is the accrual, how much return allowance you're getting monthly. And in this case, this dealer had in the last 2 years, nearly $88,000 of buyback allowance. They used $75,000 worth, and they left $13,000 and change unused. Now that's $13,000 worth of parts that they could have returned. It is use it or lose it. So if you miss a return or two, it is something you want to definitely be on top of. This number, again, it can be a little bit off because, as many of you know, the accrual and the returns don't happen in the same time period. You accrue the return allowance, and then you get a chance to process it the following month, and then the parts actually go back, and then it can be another month or so before the PDC actually processes the return. But this is the best estimate, and that's why I like looking at this 2-year number, because it accounts, I think, for and gives a good indication of how well the parts manager is managing the returns. Okay. I'm going to get into some inventory best practices. We'll be wrapping up actually in a couple of minutes, and then we will open it up for the Q&A. And I just wanted to get, I threw a lot at you there looking at those numbers, but I just wanted to take it right back again with inventory best practices. We are worried about aged inventory and getting stuck with parts and the added expense, right? Because managing the inventory is about increasing sales, but it's also about controlling expenses, and both are necessary for dealer profitability. And we ask that you focus really on increasing the fill rate, and utilizing the DMS. Have the fast-moving parts on hand, and utilizing the SSA, the stock assortment, auto part, tracking lost sales in the system as well. That all helps with the demand, making sure that the demand is being calculated properly by the DMS. And the other thing, we were just talking about monthly returns. Just ensure that you're utilizing that every month. You're maximizing those returns. There is a special return allowance that can be used also if you're having an issue with a large quantity of aged inventory. Watch your special claims and your check-in process. This is something I've seen, and we're in this. The theme of this webinar is we're trying to find some hidden dollars. What I've seen in some stores is some poor processes leading to some added expense. So if you have a process in place to check in parts in the morning, we drop our parts off overnight in the middle of the night, and we would hope that everything is going to be there and nothing's going to be damaged. But the reality is, I know that sometimes things are missing, and even some things, sheet metal and things like that, will show up damaged. You have a 15-day window to claim, and please ensure that whomever you have checking in your parts is doing they're doing their due diligence. They're making sure that the items you're paying for and showing up at your dealership, that it is something that you're going to be able to sell. And if not, you need to get those claims in right away so that you don't lose out on any of those dollars. Another thing, warranty parts retention. I don't think we talk a whole lot about it. And it doesn't affect me personally. It doesn't affect your FOM or many of us on this call, but it can affect the dollars coming into your store. If you're not managing your warranty parts properly and you're not sending them back in a timely fashion, that will cause those saga claims to get bounced. The dealership will lose dollars, not just on the part, but the entire claim. So please have a process in place for warranty parts retention as well. There is a weekly destruction list that's produced, and I would say that is a good best practice to have someone, and it doesn't have to be you, it does not have to be the parts manager going and do this. You can delegate this to someone that you trust that's going in and making sure that area is cleaned up and you're able to send parts when asked for. My last best practice deserved its own slide because I really think that this has been a thorn in our dealer side, and it is something, as I've been mentioning before, it is something that negatively affects not only parts but service as well. And I'll take it a step further. We talked about how parts inventory can affect parts and service. Well, if a customer isn't being taken care of on the service side of the business, how likely are they going to be to come back to your store and purchase another vehicle from you, right? So part of what we do in after sales is we in a lot of ways have a tougher job. The customer on the new car sales side, they get to walk out with their shiny new car. We for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, we have to keep them happy every single time they come in. And having a written special order process is a really, really good way to help ensure that. We would like to have as many parts as possible on the shelf for our customers, but we know that there are times where we can't stock everything, right? And so when we have to bring a customer back in, what does that process look like? Do you have a written process? Maybe you have one already. Is everyone on the same page? Because it's really not, if the parts department has a process and the service department doesn't know what that is, or vice versa, it's really not that valuable. Everyone needs to be on the same page. Special order parts, in my travels, and I've traveled to stores throughout the entire Northeast, it's a problem. It's really, really stacking up, and it's sandbagging the inventory. It's taking up physical space, and it's tying up dealership dollars. And then the other side of that, I have to scratch my head sometimes and ask myself, what are all these customers thinking when these parts are sitting here for weeks or maybe even months, and I don't know if they've been called back, maybe they have, I'm not sure, but please ensure that everyone's on the same page. Service consultants, parts consultants, technicians know how to handle special orders correctly. Last thing I'm just going to leave you with here is, I talked about the upward spiral for inventory management, how it affects everything in parts and service. And, just the flip side of that is when things are not managed well, it does negatively impact everything else in the store. Not having the right parts, it leads to poor customer experience, reduced productivity in the shop, decreased sales and profit. And when you're selling less and buying less, well, your parts performance bonus goes down, your buyback accrual goes down, and that hampers your ability to manage your inventory, right? And it goes round and round the other way. If you can get on top of things and turn things around in your store, it will positively impact everything on the parts and service side of the business. And with that, I am going to open it up for questions. And Victor, I think you are you looking at the questions? I do not see them right now in front of me. I'm going to try and pull them up now.
Yeah, there's 2 comments in there. Brian, if you can't see it, let me know. I'll read them to you.
Okay, I see.
Under the new tab.
All right, I'll go ahead and I'll go with the first one here. Let's see here. So what is Tyler's asking? So what is Volkswagen as a brand doing to change the poor decision they made to essentially cut our buyback? I'm guessing in half, sticking dealers with excessive obsolescence. My guess is what Tyler is talking about is when we updated our terms of trade, the buyback accrual, the way we calculate it gets changed. I know that in some cases the accrual actually goes up, and we went from a 6% accrual to 7% on stock orders. But I also know that, and we've also on daily orders used to be there. I believe there was no accrual, or if there, no, I'm sorry. I think that's now cut in half. But so forgive me if I'm misspeaking here. But I don't agree that it was cut in half. I do know that it was changed, but Tyler, I'd be happy to go over your numbers with you. And as far as what are we doing, there are no plans to change terms of trade. They were updated just recently for this year. And if there are any suggestions on what we should do going forward, I would invite you to reach out to your local parts council rep and have them bring that up as an issue to our National Parts Council. Our next question from Anonymous is, you mentioned the SSA gets sent out quarterly. Is this in an email or in Parts News or a POC home screen? That's a great question. So sent out is probably an overstatement on my part, but it is published in the Parts IQ and After Sales Bonus IQ. It is something you do have to go and pull yourself. We put it out at the beginning of every quarter. So it is actually next week is already the beginning of Q2. So generally a couple of days, I would say probably by April 2nd or April 3rd, sometimes as early as the 1st. Let's see, the 1st is a Tuesday. It may be there available. You go into Parts IQ and you'll be able to pull your SSA list. That SSA list is updated every quarter, and it is based on the parts that you've sold, your dealership has sold in the previous 3 quarters. So essentially a rolling 9 months, not quite, but it is the previous 3 quarters that we load in. And again, I just wanted to stress, it is your own store's sales history that generates that SSA, and that's what we base that list off of. But good question. Let's see here. Oh, got quite a few questions. Thanks for putting these out, Victor. Robert, what is the recommended sales movement and day supply for stocking guys? Sourced by movement, quantity of sales. I don't have that in front of me here, but Robert, I think that's a good ad. When I send my follow-up I will send a copy of this deck out to you all when I'm done. But that is a good add. I'll make sure that that is in the email, or maybe I'll add it as an appendix slide in the deck out to you. Rob asks, I understand that Autopart is supposed to help us with breadth, but I'm finding that it's creating excess inventory. What are you seeing in the region? Again, great question, guys. Thanks for the question. Let me just start out by saying that the reason for Autopart is to help you manage your inventory, but quite frankly, it's to help us manage our inventory as well. When we send you parts, we guarantee those items for 12 months, right? That you're going to sell them, and we're not interested in sending you parts that we're going to end up taking back, because it defeats the purpose. We're just increasing our costs then if we're going to end up taking those parts back. But I know you're talking about more of a day supply, what I was talking about before, that you're maybe having excess inventory. You used to stock 40 oil filters and now you're being sent 100, right? And maybe that's too, in your opinion, you feel that's too many. We in the Northeast region also, we have some smaller stores. We have some smaller stores in some busy areas. And even though the sales history may say you should stock a larger amount, the reality is that you may not even have the physical space to, I think brake rotors are a great example. Our algorithm says you should stock 20 brake rotors because it's something that you sell a whole lot of. Well, if the bin only has space for a dozen rotors, well, you're going to end up with a bunch of rotors on the floor. I've experienced this myself firsthand, and you could actually reach out to Autopart, and within your DMS, most DMSs will allow you to put a bin quantity in, so that you can limit things in that regard if there's a physical limitation. But if there's just a broader, hey, it seems like they're sending me 60 days worth of supply in whatever, fast moving parts, in maintenance items, whatever it may be, you can actually just reach right out to Autopart, and it's autopart@vw.com. They've been really responsive in making adjustments and to help you manage your inventory better. Because again, in the long run, we just want everyone to we want the experience of managing your inventory to be better, to be more efficient, and not less. Hopefully that answered your question and I didn't ramble on too much, but I probably did. Okay, is there a special return to help with the special order parts, like a 45-day return? I am a Hyundai Subaru dealer and they have a 45-day return. No, that would be my shortest answer so far, but the answer is no. But I do see where that's could be a value, absolutely, especially if you are a dealer that does a lot of wholesale business and you do have to manage through some customers that tend to return a lot. That can be helpful. All I would say again is to reach out to your local Parts Council member and please suggest that as an add. That's another thing that could be an add to the terms of trade, but that is something that would be decided on the national level. I am making a note for myself right now to make sure that when I send you guys my follow-up, you have the list of local Parts Council members are, so you know who your person is to reach out to. Tyler, again, on high wholesale percentage dealers where parts are needed next day. Okay, that's more talking about the buyback accrual. Yeah, no, I understand. I understand what we're talking about there, but that was more about us going to the 2-day stock order, because before we weren't doing we didn't have 3%. We had, I believe we didn't have anything on the dailies beforehand, but again, I might be mistaken. You have a lot of dailies and in that regard, it's cut in half. I agree with you there. Parts Council never answers emails. Well, Tyler, I will get with you, and we'll talk about that together. That should not be the case. And everything I've seen with Parts Council has been pretty responsive. But we will. I don't remember who your council member is off the top of my head, but I will get with you, and I'll make sure you have an outlet for some of these concerns. What is the recommended sales movement? Oh, I actually went through that already. SSA doesn't list or show how many numbers of each part we should stock. SSA, for SSA, you only need to stock one. So the SSA is just telling you what you should just have on it. It's essentially, should this part be phased in or not? No, from a day supply standpoint, that does not manage that. Autopart would be a better reference for that. But quite frankly, your DMS, if it's set up properly, should already tell you that. SSA is really there as a fail-safe to, if for a dealer that does not have their DMS set up properly, they're not phasing in parts correctly and not paying attention to demand. SSA is really a listing that says, these are in the last 9 months, you've sold these items, and it would be a good idea for you to have them. And as far as how many you should stock, you should refer to your DMS in that regard. Is there a way to return hazmat items? We still have airbags from the high level Takata airbags from years past. From my understanding, hazmats are not excluded. They're not necessarily deemed not returnable, but I do know that a lot of those airbags have been superseded several times. And if you have some really old stock, it's just a matter of whether or not in Parts on Command, the item is listed as returnable or not returnable. I don't believe it matters. Hazmat, I believe we will take hazmat items back as long as we deem it to be returnable. And you may need to just scrap it if it is some old stock there. Rob, again, I was on a standard setup and they lowered. Okay, this is back to Autopart again. I was on a standard setup. They just lowered my day supply to see what it does for me. I wish the system was easier to work with, having to check before 8 every day. So I don't, again, Rob, I would just ask, I would contact them. If you would like, you could copy me as well the next time you reach out to Autopart. My email is, hang on. There, my email's right there on the screen. Please copy me next time you reach out to them, and they will work with you to get it right. Again, the intent is not to have you look at and scrutinize and spend extra time in the beginning. If you're a new dealer, if you just got set up on Autopart a few weeks ago or a couple of months ago, yeah, you may need to spend a little bit of extra time. But eventually it is, from what I've heard from most parts managers, is that it eventually does become, does save parts managers time and it becomes easier and makes it easier to manage the inventory. Let's see. Wow, guys, lots of questions. I love it. I'm going to stay on. New to the brand, what's the process to return a special order part if the customer doesn't come in within 3 weeks? No, there was a question earlier. Someone asked about Subaru and Hyundai having a 45-day return policy. We do not have anything like that. We give up to 7% buyback accrual for stock orders, and you do manage your returns through there. Let's see. Oh, it looks like they are. Sorry, I'm just trying to go through to make sure I don't have any repeats there. On the report card, explain how there would be a negative unused buyback if we're not doing it. Oh, that's a good question. Thank you for that. Again, negative unused buyback would be, again, because of the way we're calculating things, because there is perhaps a 3 or 4 month time period between when the accrual is gained, when you submit the return in parts on command, the physical return of the parts back to the PDC, and then the PDC processing that and issuing the credit. Sometimes those orders, sometimes those returns get backed up, and you may get a couple of those returns in one time period versus another. I wouldn't get hung up on it. The negative numbers just means that you're maxing out your return allowance. Ken here, hey Ken, Autopart does not use full bin quantities. We set up our entire inventory with full bin quantities, and they are completely ignored. If you want Ken to send them another note and copy me on it, please do. I haven't heard of a dealer been able to use bin quantities on every single part. I've never heard of that. I kind of, the specific example I gave with brake rotors, and I don't know if there's a limit or not, if they only do a certain amount, but if you want to send them a note and copy me on it, I'll be happy to follow up on that with you. Where or who comes up with 50% inventory greater for SSA? Does anyone have that? Good question. Who comes up with that? I guess that's me. And that's not a KPI. It's not a number that's put out there that we monitor that closely. But I look at not just one deal. I look at 201 dealers in the Northeast region. And does anyone have that? Yes, we do have, I'd say about 35% of the dealers that are at that number. And if you just want to think about it in theory, having 50% SSA items, the SSA, we just said, those are the items that you sell. So I would want half of my inventory to be my fast moving items that I sell every day. I mean, that's just, yeah. So again, that's a number I came up with as a benchmark. And if you're welcome to question it, but if you have any questions on further questions, go ahead and drop me a line here. Brian, the report card doesn't match my DMS. It's wrong. Yeah, Jose, just give me a ring, drop me a note. We can go through it together. And it's possible. Again, our system has to talk to every one of your DMSs. In the past, it was Reynolds, it was CDK, and that was it. Now there's so many others out there. Techion, the new one, Dealer Track, and everything else. And it's possible that, things are just not 100%. Again, this is meant to start a conversation. And quite frankly, I'm extremely happy because with 21 questions here at the end of one of these, trust me, we usually don't have 21 questions at the end of our webinar. So I think, you may question some of the numbers, but the fact that we're all talking about it here, I think is a good thing. Is there a resource out there that helps us get rid of parts that are non-returnable? Another good question. I'm making a note for myself. Resource. For Volkswagen, we have a supplemental buyback. I'm sorry, you said non-returnable, so strike that, non-returnable. So for non-returnable items, you don't have many options. It's either eBay or sell it online. It's scrap it and take a full loss. Or there are some companies out there that do specialize in obsolescence reduction. They're third parties. I'm not going to give you an official recommendation, but I'll give you a list of some companies. One of them's called Dealer Mine. I believe that's affiliated with CDK. And there are a couple others that escape my mind right now, but I'll put those in as a footnote, some resources for you, where you can at least, you're not going to get 100% of the item back, but you'll get 50 cents on the dollars, that sort of thing, and be able to sell it all in one shot. Let's see here. The inventory movement chart. Do you have a benchmark of where I already covered that? I'll put that in the appendix. Let's see here. How did your sample dealer have an SSA of 98 and only have 16%? That's a really great question. And I actually had that same question as I was going through it. And I actually wish that I used a different example. So thanks, Pat, for making me look bad. No, that's a really great observation. And I don't know. I would need to look deeper into that store, and I would want to maybe pull some other DMS reporting if I were in that store and look at some fill rate numbers. And yeah, something was off there. I agree. Tyler, non-returnable items should automatically go D2D eligible. Another great Parts Council issue. I'm sorry to keep, that's probably 3 for 3 there, Tyler, that I'm referring you back to Parts Council, but that's a system issue. That's a Parts on Command thing and a terms of trade thing that I think is a great common sense idea, but it's just something that needs some consensus. And if enough of you guys and gals are speaking up and letting your council members know, I've seen it. I've been in this role for 10 years. I was a VW Audi parts manager for several years. I have seen these concerns like these come together, get to council, and go up to national, and our leaders have heard you and listened and have made changes. So if hopefully I don't come off as trying to pass the buck by saying, hey, tell your Parts Council about it, but I'm really telling you that is the channel to make changes like this. If there's anything we can do, the region leadership, John Peterson, my boss can do to help influence, we certainly will. But it's really the grassroots efforts of Parts Council speaking up, like you guys are all speaking up right now, and talking to the council members. That's really what has influenced a lot of positive change, a lot of good things that have changed over the years. So that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it. Guys, it is, let's see, great suggestion, Tyler. Thanks again. Yep. Again, yeah, and again, not knocking any of it. I think they're all really good suggestions. Guys, we are over on time, but I promised I would stay and I would answer any and every question that you had. Hopefully I've done that. Again, my contact information is there. I'll hang on for another minute or so in case anybody else has a last minute question, but I hope you found this to be informative. I hope it sparks further conversation within your stores. If you have further questions, feel free to reach out to me or your FOM, and we'll continue working with you. I will send a copy of this presentation out. There'll also be a recording. Most of you know we do record these webinars and we do post them on a YouTube channel. So if you want to see this again, or if you want to share it with somebody else in your store, a link will be going out. I'll probably send that all to you sometime tomorrow. Thanks again. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.